Jai. 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 Vivo.
Oh, glories to the Son.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, glories to the Son.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, glories to the Son.
Hare Krishna.
Glories, glories to the Shiva and Shiva Ranga. Oh, glories to Shiva Prabhupada. Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So we are reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita this morning in the Madhya Lila chapter 9, which is entitled Lord Chaitanya's Travels to the Holy Places. And we're beginning from text 270. Forgot how long Narayana Parasame Nakutaschana Viyati Saga Because what we're going to do here, we're going to break the V and turn it back into a U. No, sorry. Na swaga parvagana lakshmi. No, it's not right, is it? 1, 2. This is why it's difficult, this line, because yeah, because again we get an extra syllable because of the V. Swaga pavagana lekshevi apitulatya dashinaha Narayana parasave Nakutakshana bipyati Swaga pavagana leksheshu Apitulata dashinaha Narayana paresave Nakutaschana bipyati Swaga pavakanala keshu. What can I do? Because it's supposed to be joined to the next line, but we can't really do that. Apitulyata dashinaha. Rupanuga always chickens out, so it's up to the ladies. Narayana parasame Kutakshana Bibhyati Bhaganatanakshechu Apitulyatadashinaha Nanayana Padasame Nakutaschanya Bhivyati Apitulyatadashinaha. Are you feeling brave, Becca? Nanayana Padasame Nakutaschana Bhivyati Sagapavananakeshu Apitulyatadashinaha Narayana Paraha. Persons who are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. Same, all, na, never, kutaschana, anywhere, vimyati, afraid, swaga, in the heavenly planetary system, apavaga, on the path of liberation, narakeshu, or in the hellish condition. Nor in a hellish condition of life. Api, even. Tulya, equal. Artha, value. Darshanaha, seers of. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person who is a devotee of Lord Narayan is not afraid of a hellish condition because he considers it the same as elevation to the heavenly planets or liberation. The devotees of the Lord are accustomed to seeing all these things on the same level. Report. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28 regarding the personality of Chitraketu. Once, when Chitraketu saw the goddess Parvati sitting on the lap of Lord Swayambhu, Shiva, he became a little ashamed and criticized Lord Shiva, who was sitting just like an ordinary man with his wife on his lap. For this reason, Chitraketu was cursed by Parvati. Later he became a demon named Vitrasura. Chitraketu was a very powerful king and a devotee, and he could certainly retaliate, even against Lord Shiva. But when Parvati cursed him, he immediately accepted the curse and bowed his head. When he agreed to accept the curse, Lord Shiva praised it and told Parvati that the devotee of Lord Narayan is never afraid of accepting any position, provided there is a chance to serve the Supreme Personality Godhead. This is the purport of Narayana Pana Savena Kushchana Vimati. Om Jnana Timinandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Malitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Maivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Nama, Hare Hare. Yeah, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here is pointing out to the Tattvavadi Acharya that liberation is not actually the goal of life. It may be the goal from the point of view of Chaturvarga, but it's not actually really the goal of life. That is for the general populace, you could say, those who are not Vaishnava. This is for the general populace. That is what the Tattvavadi Acharya was saying, that to offer the results of one's activity on the Vashram Dham, in Varnashram Dham, and thereby attain liberation is the goal of life. But it's not really the goal of life, actually. To attain liberation is also selfish. So therefore Mahaprabhu has quoted a string of verses here to prove from the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're all from Srimad Bhagavatam, to prove that liberation is not the goal of life. And liberation is not the goal of life because to a devotee it's insignificant. And this is an amazing verse, actually. This is the culmination of a few chapters of Bhagavatam from Chitraketu, at least the previous 2 chapters. This is chapter 17, goes back at least 2 chapters. So the backing story Prabhupada has summarized in the purport here. The backing story is, was it 10 million or 1 million wives? It's 10 million, no? I think. Imagine having 10 million wives. I can't imagine how that's possible. I struggle with 1. What to speak of 10 million? Yeah, Chitraketu Maharaj had 10 million wives but no sons. And what can we understand from that? It wasn't his karma to have a son, actually. But when you're the king of the I'm not sure what he was the king of at that stage. Might have been the Earth planet. When he was the king of the Earth planet, what was he thinking? I need someone to continue the lineage. So I need a son. But even though it was 10 million, I think. Even though he had 10 million wives, no son. So Angira Muni, he was always in deep lamentation because of that. So Angira Muni came to see him. Angira Muni said, Chitraketu, why are you in such lamentation? And he said, no, I don't have a son. You're a great sage, so you can give me that benediction. So Angira Muni said, yes, I can give you a son. He will be the source of great jubilation, but he'll also be the source of great suffering. Maharaj Chitraketu was thinking, how can it be? If I get a son, how can it be a source of great suffering? So he didn't really take any notice of that part of the benediction. That was the best part of the benediction, actually. Why was it the best part? Because it awakened him. It awakened him. Otherwise, in the deep slumber of material life with 10 million wives. So, what was the name of that wife? What was her name? The one who gave birth?
Something Judy.
Yes. So that wife became
Pregnant?
the favourite. Became the favourite. And therefore the other 9,990,999 became jealous. And therefore they hatched a plan. It must have been a big conference call for that number of wives. No? 9,999,999 wives. They had a big conference call, and what did they decide to do? They decided to poison the child. So therefore Maharaj Chitraketu has been plunged into the greatest lamentation. They were both crying, he and his wife actually, they were crying like piteously. So at that time Angira Muni came back, and this time he brought Narada Muni with him. Angira Muni was like, why are you in such lamentation? He said, no, my son died, this, that, What am I going to do now? Woe is me. And all this, they beat their chests and their heads and all that kind of thing. So then Narada Muni called that child back, called that soul back into the body and asked, where are you going? Can't you see how much your parents want you? Why are you going away now? So the soul answered in the most amazing way. He said, it's actually my karma to go at this point, And as for the parents, he said, which particular parents do you mean? Because I had so many parents. So was it the last life or the one before that? Or which parents do you mean? So hearing this, actually, Maharaj Chitraketu woke up from his slumber. And Narada Muni gave him a mantra, which is quite long, actually, the mantra. I think it's about 7 or 8 verses. He gave him a mantra. And in 7 days, you can understand what a great person he was. In 7 days, He got the darshan of the Supreme Lord in 7 days. So then he became the leader of Vidyadharas. No? His great personality. Automatically, by rising to that devotional platform, he became qualified to be the leader of the Vidyadharas. And he was traveling around in so many places. I think they actually came to Kailash. And then, I'm not sure where it was. Do you remember where they were? I think it was Kailash. Anyway, Lord Shiva was sitting with a group of sages. I don't even remember what they were discussing. But anyway, Parvati Devi was sitting on his lap at that time. Now when Chitraketu observed that, he wasn't really criticizing actually. It was more adbhut. He was kind of amazed that actually he was indirectly glorifying Shiva as such a great personality. That, in the presence of so many sages, he can sit with his wife on his lap and he remains in his great position as Lord Shiva. He's not affected by that actually. So actually he was expressing wonder. He wasn't really criticizing. He just observed and he's thinking, wow, Shiva is so amazing that he can do this. In the presence of sages, Lord Shiva is not at all attached to his wife. And what is the proof of that? They have no house. How is it that, because Gri Hasta, what does it mean? It means there must be Griha. There must be one who lives with his wife. So Lord Shiva is such an exalted personality that he doesn't have, they just, travel around under this banyan tree. There's no house. So he's not really very attached to Parvati, but Parvati didn't take it in this way. She took it as criticism actually. And she cursed him. You're such a rascal. The Lord Shiva is such an exalted personality. How can you dare to criticize him? No? So as a result of that, actually, her curse was you have to take birth as a demon. So he came as Vitrasura. Yeah. So when Parvati cursed, Prabhupada's saying in the purport, he could have countered it. He could have cursed back actually, but he didn't. He just accepted it. And he came and he bowed before Parvati and he said, it's okay that you cursed me, and I'll accept that. I don't have a problem with that. And later it becomes very intense actually. The whole thing becomes very intense. In the end, he has to actually, he has to tell Indra off actually for not fighting at his best. He has to tell him off. So anyway, this is the backing story. But the purport here, from this point of view at least, is that even put into that condition, he was a great devotee actually, he was put into that condition of becoming a demon, Vitrasura, a very powerful demon actually. And even Indra was scratching his head wondering how he's going to deal with that demon actually. He was really, and he was reluctant to fight. Absolutely, he was scared to fight, even though he was the king of heaven, an expert with the Vajra. There are some weapons that once they're loose, they can't be recalled. They must find their target. Well, they can be recalled, but they usually, when they are loosed, they will find their target, no matter where you're hiding. Even you can be like the Iranians, have hidden their missiles under mountains, but the Brahmastra will find you. And the Vajra is also like that. It'll find you. So he was basically telling off Indradev for not fighting properly, because Indra was afraid of him actually. Anyway, he was such an exalted personality that put into this condition, he wasn't at all perturbed, which is pretty amazing. So the purport here, this is like the last verse in the series which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has quoted. A person who is a devotee of the Lord is not afraid of a hellish condition because he considers it the same as elevation to the heavenly planets or liberation. Yeah, because a devotee is so connected in such communion with the Lord that they don't care what condition. For them, everything is the same. Because after all, the material nature is also Krishna's energy. And if it's dealt with properly, it becomes transcendental. That's why our process is Yukta Vairagya. Because everything belongs to Krishna and should be used in his service.
And if it's used in its service, it becomes transcendental. It becomes transcendental. So to a devotee, he doesn't care whether he's in the hellish planets, the heavenly planets, or he's liberated. It's all the same. Devotee is already liberated, so he doesn't actually care. So this is the backing story. So we have all these. It's worth just reminding ourselves the glory of pure devotees. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, because the holy name is a personality, so that personality of Krishna is present in the holy name becomes very dear to a devotee. He's agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, and becomes agitated and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. In every revealed scripture, there is condemnation of fruitive activity. It is advised everywhere to give up engagement in fruitive activity, for by it no one can attain the highest goal of life. Occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A person who does this is considered a first-class man. You see, this is all defeating this Acharya. The Acharya was saying, let's just find his verse. It's 255, I think. Yeah, it's 255. No, 256. When the activities of the four castes and four varnas are dedicated to Krishna, they constitute the best means whereby one can attain the highest goal of life. When one dedicates the duties of Varnashram and Dharma to Krishna, he is eligible for 5 kinds of liberation. Thus he is transferred to the spiritual world in Vaikuntha. This is the highest goal of life and the verdict of all the revealed scriptures. Not quite. It's the verdict of 96%. But the 96% is the part where Krishna is engaging us to kind of turn our heads in the right direction. So from the point of view, if you want to say the greater portion of the Veda, that's true, 96%. But it excludes the Jnana Kanda and the Pasana Kanda, because that's the real goal of life. The rest is just to turn the living entities around. Pure devotees reject the 5 kinds of liberation. Indeed, liberation of them is insignificant because it is seen as hellish. Yeah, because that's selfish, the desire for that. The only way a devotee will accept those if service is part of the deal. Anyway, so this is, a person who is a devotee of Lord Narayan is not afraid of hellish condition because he considers it the same as elevation to heavenly planets or liberation. The devotees of the Lord of Narayan are accustomed to seeing all these things on the same level. Yeah. So this way Mahaprabhu concludes, and in the previous, from that verse I read, then 268, 269, and this one, 270, are all pointing out that the devotee is not interested in liberation. It's not really the goal of life either. Okay, so this having been said then, Mahaprabhu goes on. This is 271. Muktikama dui vastu tvaje bhaktagana sehi dui stapa tuni sadhya sadhana. Both liberation and fruitive activity are rejected by the devotees. You are trying to establish these things as life goal and the process to attain it. Yeah, mentioned here as sadhya and sadhana, the goal and how to attain it. Both liberation and fruitive activities are rejected by devotees. You are trying to establish these things as life goal and the process to attain it. Yeah, so Mahaprabhu is summarizing what the Acharyas said. This, according to you, is the goal and how to attain it. But it's actually not the goal, and neither is it how to attain it. Sannyasi dekiyamone karaha vachana na kahila denhi sadhya sadhana lakshana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued speaking to the Tattvavadi Acharya. Seeing that I am a mendicant in the renounced order, you have been playing with me in a duplicitous way. You have not actually described the process and the ultimate objective. Mahaprabhu completely rejected this. In the same way that in the beginning of the conversation with Ramananda Roy, when Mahaprabhu told him, you quote a verse which explains the goal of life. He quoted a verse in the Padma Purana which pretty much says the same thing. The Varnashram, executing one's duty in Varnashram Dharma, offering the result to Krishna is the goal of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued speaking, you are to the Tattvavadi Acharya. Seeing I'm a mendicant and in the renounced order of life, you have been playing with me in a duplicitous way. You have not actually described the process and the ultimate objective. Shuni Tattvacharya Haila Antare Lanjita Prabhuda Vaishnavata Deki Haila Vishmita. After hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Acharya of the Tattvavadi became very ashamed. Upon observing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's rigid faith in Vaishnavism, he was struck with wonder. So this is an important point actually, because up until the time of Madhvacharya, that sampradaya is pretty much Dvaita, actually. Pretty much it's Dvaita. It's not the Chintabheda Tattva. So it's not Vaishnava. Well, it is Vaishnava, but it's not Vaishnava expressed in the fullest and most complete way. It is a Vaishnava sampradaya, but it's not expressed completely. Because our philosophy is a Chintabheda Veda Tattva, whereas their philosophy is basically doing dualism, Dvaita. So, after hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Acharya of the Tattvavadi Sampradaya became very ashamed, because he realized, he kind of realized that what Madhvacharya was teaching was not the full understanding, the proper understanding. So, Acharya kahe tumi yehi kahe, Acharya kahe tumi yehi kaha, Se satyahaya savashastre vaishnavera esunacharya. The Tattvacharya replied, what you have said is certainly factual. It is the conclusion of all the revealed scriptures of the Vaishnavas. Tahapi madhvacharya ye karyacharya. This is a long line. Tatapi madhvacharya ye kari ache nibadana. Say, I still haven't got that right. Tatapi madhvacharya ye kari ache nibadana. Say acharya sabe sampradaya. No. Say Acharya Sava Sampradaya Sambandha. Still, whatever Madhvacharya has ascertained to be the formula for our party, we practice it as party policy, because they're the followers of Madhvacharya. So they're bound, they're in that Sampradaya, they are bound by the philosophy given by Madhvacharya. Still, whatever Madhvacharya has ascertained to be the formula for our party, we practice as party policy. Prabhu kai kami jani dui bhaktahina tomana sampradaye deki se dui china. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, both the fruitive worker and the speculative philosopher are considered non-devotees. we see both elements present in your sampradaya. Yeah, because what does it really mean to be a devotee? To be a devotee means to follow the process of devotional service. And what is that process? That process is the 9 processes of devotional service. That is actually the process. But here the process is something completely different. So therefore Mahaprabhu is identifying it like that. Both the fruitive worker and the speculative philosopher. Actually, Narottam Das Thakur says they're 2 pots of poison. He actually says like that in the Prema Bhakti Chandrika. He says like that. It's actually 2 pots of poison, because that is not pure devotional service. It's a mixture. It is mixed with the karma or jnana, and the definition throws those out. Anya bilashita shunyam gana kama danavritam. Not covered. Avrita means to be covered, so anavrita means not covered by karma or jnana adi or something else, like the desire for yogic siddhis or whatever. So it's not really devotional service. It's fruitive activity for, ultimately for gaining liberation, or mental speculation or the desire for liberation. So it's not pure devotional service. So when Mahaprabhu says here, they're non-devotees, he's applying the standard very strictly. Because if our devotion is mixed, we're not really devotees. Because devotee means pure. Anyabhilashita sunyam. No other desire except to serve Krishna. Not covered by karma or jnana. Executed constantly as Krishna desires. That's the definition. So therefore what the Acharya is presented is not pure. And therefore Mahaprabhu has rejected it. It's not really devotional service. Shabe eka gunadeki tomada sampradaye satya vigrah kari ishare karana nishchaye. The only qualification that I see in your sampradaya is that you accept the form of the Lord as truth. Mahaprabhu has been very, very strict here. That they accept the Supreme Lord as the topmost, and the Lord as the truth, as the absolute truth. Mahaprabhu said that's the only qualification of his sampradaya. It's a very strict application of the philosophy of the Vaishnavas. But that is Mahaprabhu's position. Mahaprabhu wants everyone to become pure devotees. In travelling in South India, that is Mahaprabhu's goal. The external goals of Mahaprabhu is to propagate the chanting of the holy name of the Lord and to propagate the super excellence of Ragatmika Bhakti, spontaneous devotional service. Anything else, Mahaprabhu is not interested in it. The only qualification that I see in your sampradaya is that you accept the form of the Lord as truth. So there's quite a nice purport here. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually all Prabhupada's purports are nice, but some are more nice and some are the best. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out that the Tattvadvadi Acharya, who belonged to Madhvacharya Sampradaya, that their general behavior did not favour pure devotional service, which must be devoid of the taints of fruitive activity and speculative knowledge. As far as fruitive activity is concerned, the contamination is elevation to the highest standard of life, and for speculative knowledge, the contamination of merging into the existence of the absolute truth. No, Prabhupada says it's a contamination. It's a contamination because it's selfish. I'm executing the Chaturvarga because, first of all, I want my material sense gratification. But then when I get tired of it, I want liberation. The whole thing is saturated with the contamination of the material modes in one way or another. So therefore it's rejected. The contamination of merging into the existence of the absolute truth. It's a bit like escaping from jail. How can you escape from jail? You could scale the wall, right? You can get one of those, it's like an upside down anchor, and you throw it like that and it hooks onto the wall and you climb up the rope. What's the other way of getting out? Oops. The other way of getting out is, you're not good at charades, so yeah, dig a tunnel. Yeah, you dig a tunnel. You dig a tunnel or you scale the wall, what's the problem with it? They'll still be looking for you. So it's not really, liberation is something like that, impersonal liberation. It's something like getting out of jail free card. But it doesn't, not getting out of jail free. The authorities are still looking for you. And if they catch you, what will happen? They'll increase your sentence, actually. Mahaprabhu says they take birth as stones. It's not a permanent liberation. Why is it not permanent? This sayuja is not permanent. Yeah, because sooner or later some desire is going to come. Sooner or later. And then you'll fall down and you take birth in, what are they called? Forget the name of those rocks. You break them open and there's crystals inside. Begins with A. Can't remember. Anyway, so then you're sitting in your crystal and you're thinking, Hangramasmi, Tattvamasi, and all that. No? That's what Mahaprabhu says, they take birth as stones. Because it's horrible. So it's a contamination. The Tattva Sampradaya, or the Madhvacharya school, sticks to the principle of Varnashram Dharma, which involves fruitive activity. Their goal, mukti, is simply a form of desire. It's a selfish desire, in other words. A pure devotee should be free from all kinds of desire, even the desire for liberation. He must simply engage in the service of the Lord. Nonetheless, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pleased that the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, the Tattvavada Sampradaya, accepted the transcendental form of the Lord. This is the goal, the great qualification of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. So there are 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, right? So we can delineate them by their acharyas. So ours is, our Sampradaya, the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya. Brahma because he's the head. He's the one that Krishna enlightened with the sound of his flute. Then from him comes Narada Muni, his son, and this is the way that one goes on. So then when the teachings of that particular Sampradaya became lost, then Krishna sends another Acharya. So that was Madhvacharya. And then Mahaprabhu decided he could have could have appeared in any of the 4 Sampradayas, but he chose this one. So then it became the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So the proper title is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Then there is Sri Sampradaya, coming from Shri Lakshmi Devi, yes. Then there is Rudra Sampradaya, coming from Lord Shiva. And then there is Kumar Sampradaya, coming from 4 Kumaras. So in the modern age, only 2 are prominent. Only 2. Ours is prominent, and if you go to South India, especially Sri Sampradaya is very prominent. And they are, their Brahmins are pretty amazing actually. They make us look like novices. They make us look like novices. You know, Gopal Bhatta Goswami was the son of Venkata Bhatta. They are South Indian Brahmanas. They were living at Srirangam. He is so exalted, this Gopal Bhatta Goswami, that he was the go-to person for Sanatana Goswami when he would write scripture. He was so learned actually that he would give him the service of, okay, you research, what's this verse, what's that verse? So some people even say that Haribhakta Vilas was written by him. It's kind of it's an unresolved question, who actually wrote it. But the minimum we can say is that Gopal Bhatta Goswami did the research. That's the minimum we can say. And it is the last word in Vaishnava behavior. It is so deeply researched, actually. So from this we can understand that Gopalbhatta Goswami was very deeply schooled in the scripture. That when Sanatana Goswami wanted help, this is the person he went to. So the Sri Sampradaya are pretty amazing, actually. Yeah, so this is what Prabhupada's saying here. This is the great qualification of the Vaishnava Sampradayas, that they all accept that Krishna is the absolute truth. It is the Mayavad Sampradaya. Yeah, it is the Mayavad Sampradaya that does not accept the transcendental form of the Lord. If a Vaishnava Sampradaya also carried away by the impersonal attitude, that Sampradaya has no position at all. In fact, that there are many so-called Vaishnavas whose ultimate aim is to merge into the existence of the Lord. The Sahajas Vaishnava philosophy is to become one with the Supreme, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One with the Supreme. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out that Sri Madhavendra Puri, I don't know what's the matter with me today. The Sahaja Vaishnava philosophy is to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out that Sri Madhavendra Puri accepted Madhvacharya only because his Sampradaya accepted the transcendental form of the Lord. Because Madhvacharya, Madhavendra Puri is coming in that Sampradaya. And he could have, because he's a Kalpavriksha from the spiritual world and he was the basis of the Chaitanya tree. So Prabhupada is pointing out here that the only reason he accepted that Sampradaya, so that Mahaprabhu could appear, is this reason. Accepted the Madhvacharya only because his Sampradaya accepted the transcendental form of the Lord. So it's a very deep point. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this verse. So what I did, I actually printed it, for another purpose, I printed out the purport of this verse. But it's, since we're talking about pure devotional service, and that is given in the Madhya Lila later on in the discussion between Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, I thought it would be nice to look at this purport a bit, because here Mahaprabhu rejected the assertion of the Madhva Sampradaya Acharya, considering it to be imperfect, because it was tainted with material inebriety. So the actual definition that Mahaprabhu is keeping in his mind when he's discussing is that Anyabhilashita Sunya, Jnana Kamadanavrita Manukalena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. So I wanted, because it's kind of, it's the last, this is the last kind of thing in this discussion. So I thought it would be nice to examine what Srila Prabhupada says about pure devotional service. This verse can also be found in Sri Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. As we can understand from Bhagavad Gita 9.34 and 18.65. Because we learned 9.34, isn't it? So? This is the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. It's expressed in a simpler form, but it's basically the same principle. Right? That one should always engage his mind in thinking of Krishna, become his devotee, is it worship and offer obeisances, or the other way around? Worship him and offer obeisances to him, and thus being fully absorbed in him, one will certainly come to him. So it's the same definition, but it's expressed in a different way. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wants everyone to think of him always, man mana bhava, man bhaktaha. Everyone should become his devotee, not the devotee of a demigod. Everyone should engage in his devotional service, including acharya and archana, deity worship in the temple. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji man namaskaru. Everyone should offer obeisances from moment to moment. Note that, moment to moment. You know, His Grace, servant of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, Shuttakirti Guru. He was saying that, that when, in this movement, we're always up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, always offering obeisances. Our spiritual master used to tell us that when we were serving, he would say you can offer once in the morning and it's fine after that. You don't have to do it again. Just offer once sincerely in the morning, because obviously when you're serving the spiritual master, what are you doing? Backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So he would tell us that you offer once in the morning, it's fine. But Shrutakirti Guru would say whenever he would go to Prabhupada, he would offer obeisances. Whenever he left, he would offer obeisances. So he was saying it's actually very good for us. When we come to the temple room, we offer obeisances. When we do Guru Puja, when we do the deity greeting, and then when you're chanting the prayers in the morning, it's like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. But he was saying it's very good for us actually, because it cultivates humility to offer obeisances regularly. So Prabhupada here is saying from moment to moment, it's a nice meditation actually, because who are we actually? Smaller than the smallest, very tiny spirit soul. Yes, moment to moment. To the Supreme Personality of Godhead, these are the desires of the Supreme Lord. And one who fulfills his desires favorably is actually a pure devotee. Krishna wants everyone to surrender to him. And devotional service means preaching his gospel all over the world. Yeah, Krishna doesn't mention that in the verse, but that's actually our purpose. Everyone says that this is a preaching movement. That is the prime goal of this movement. And devotional service means preaching this gospel all over the world. The Lord says openly in the Bhagavad Gita 1869, Na chantasman manusheshu kaschinme priyakritamaha. One who preaches the gospel of Bhagavad Gita for the benefit of all is most dear to Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord so that human society can be perfectly organized from all angles of vision, politically, socially, economically, philosophically and religiously. From any point of view, human society can be reformed by the Krishna consciousness movement. That's what Prabhupada says actually. In the introduction to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada said this movement is intended as a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of society. Note that, a cultural presentation, because that is the binding force which enables one to engage in spiritual activity. It's a cultural thing. It's like Prema was telling me that when she was trying to figure out how to present this book, Gita 3, to take one of these topics and present it in a class. She was saying to me that it's hard for me to understand how to do that. And she didn't really understand why, and I told her the reason why is because for you, the acceptance of spiritual principles is a cultural consideration. You haven't worked through it, just accept it. It's the Bhagavad Gita and you just accept it. It's a cultural consideration. But those from the West, especially those who are a little bit intellectually inclined, they don't just accept it. They have to be convinced. So therefore our preachers in the West, they say that in order to present this to people, it has to be logic and argument in the beginning. Has to be logic and argument. So this is why Prabhupada is saying it's a cultural presentation. Because if society is set up right, then there's no need to ask those questions. You just take it on as part of your culture to be a spiritually oriented person. Yeah, so Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord so that human society can be perfectly organized. From any point of view, human society can be reformed by the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, one who spreads this philosophy of Krishna consciousness for the benefit of all his conditioned souls in the universe is perfect in pure devotional service. That's what it means in our movement to be a pure devotee. It actually means to preach. Because the other things we should do as a matter of respect and love for our spiritual master. But the real thing is to preach. The criterion is that a devotee must know what Krishna wants him to do. This understanding can be achieved through the medium of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami advises Adao Guru Ashayam. One who is serious about wanting to render service to the Supreme Lord must take shelter of a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession from Krishna. Actually, technically speaking as well, your preaching won't really be effective unless you're connected to a sampradaya. You have to be connected, because that is how the knowledge is flowing. The transcendental knowledge is flowing through the sampradaya. You have to be connected. It doesn't mean that if you're not initiated, you can't be connected, because we're following Srila Prabhupada. So even if you're Bhakta so-and-so, if you're following the direction Srila Prabhupada has given, you're connected to the sampradaya. Hasn't become formalized yet, but it will become formalized if you continue in that way. So one is serious in wanting to render pure devotional service. The Lord must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession from Krishna. Evam parampara praptam. Imam. They did a very good 4-2. One who accepts a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession. One cannot find out, without accepting a bona fide spiritual master coming in disciplic succession, one cannot find out the real purpose of devotional service. Important point. But when we deal with those who are interested or a little bit serious but not initiated, we give age-appropriate knowledge. This is for those who are connected to the sampradaya properly. So in other places it's also mentioned that Krishna doesn't really recognize you as being his devotee, or, until we're connected to the sampradaya formally. But that's age-appropriate knowledge. It's no good telling that to people in the beginning. No, we tell them my spiritual master used to express it in that way. If you accept anything Srila Prabhupada has said, then you're actually connected to the sampradaya in one way. Because if you keep going, if you keep following the direction of Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master will come and you'll be initiated. So initiation is a process. It's not just, okay, now, you're doing some things and then you get initiated like that. It's actually a process. So anyone accepts anything that Srila Prabhupada says, their initiation process has begun. But it's true also that we're not formally accepted by Krishna unless we're connected to the sampradaya. Therefore, one has to accept the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and agree to be directed by him. The first business of a pure devotee, because actually that's an interesting point, how Prabhupada expresses it here. One time Prabhupada was asked by one reporter, how many pure devotees do you have? And you know what Prabhupada said? He turned to his servant and he said, how many disciples do we have? So what did Prabhupada consider?
All of them.
Yeah, they're all pure devotees. They may be green mangoes, but if they follow the process, they'll become ripe. So, if we follow the direction of our spiritual master, we are pure devotees in the making. And it's interesting that a green mango is a bit sour. No? So when we're following the process, but we haven't got there yet, we're a bit sour. So our dealings are a bit sour, and our devotional service is a bit sour. But eventually it'll happen. The first business of a pure devotee is to satisfy his spiritual master, whose only business is to spread Krishna consciousness. Isn't that interesting? His only business. And if one can satisfy the spiritual master, Krishna is automatically satisfied. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada. This is the success of pure devotional service. This is the meaning of the word anukulena. That is, favourable service to the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee has no plans other than those for the Lord's service. He is not interested in attaining success in mundane activities. Not interested. Of course, we may have to do it. Why? because we're not all living in the temple. We may have to do that. We may have to execute some mundane activity, what Prabhupada calls regular duties. We may have to do that, but we're not really interested in it. We do it because we have to execute our duty. You simply want success in the progress of devotional service. For a devotee, there cannot be worship of others or demigod worship. A pure devotee does not engage himself in such pseudo-devotional service. He is interested only in satisfying Krishna. If one lives only for the satisfaction of Krishna, it does not matter whether he belongs to this order of life or that order of life. In other words, order of life, Prabhupada means? Yeah, it means that, whether you're brahmachari, sannyasi or grahastha, or whether you're brahmin or kshatriya, it doesn't matter, actually. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that, actually. He says, I'm not a brahmin, I'm not a kshatriya, I'm not a vaishya, I'm not a shudra. I'm not a brahmachari, I'm not a grahastha. He was a brahmachari and he was a grahastha, but he says, no, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm not a sannyasi. I'm simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis of Vrindavan. That's what Mahaprabhu himself says. If one lives only for the satisfaction of Krishna, it does not matter whether he belongs to this or that order of life, this or that order of life. One's only business is to be satisfy Krishna. This process completely manifests in the activities of the Krishna consciousness movement. It has been actually proved that the entire world can accept devotional service without failure. One simply has to follow the instructions of the representative of Krishna. It's such a nice purport, that's why I thought I'd read it to you. So this is our business. Our business is twofold. The first is to develop our relationship with Krishna. What does that mean?
All the instructions are spiritual.
Yeah, but in practice, what does that mean? Yeah, Sharanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. But in practical terms, it means to execute the sadhana to the best of our ability. Because the sadhana is where your strength comes from. Because if you're going to mix with the public and preach, what do you need? You need some spiritual strength, yeah. Because you have to associate with them. You have to have some spiritual strength. So that is our sadhana. So we have to we don't talk about these things a lot. We just assume that our sadhana is together. But we have to be careful to execute our sadhana to the best of our ability. And that means a few things. That means to not commit offences to the holy name. That's one thing which is very important. Otherwise your progress will be arrested. You'll stand still. You may even get into trouble, actually. Another thing, if you're a temple devotee, is to follow the direction of your temple authorities. To follow their direction. There may be some discussion. They may say, I want you to do this service or that service. Now there's room for discussion. But in the final analysis, whatever is decided in that discussion, should follow it to the best of our ability. Should try to render our service in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada does say that in many places. We should render devotional service to the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Because you can render service to the Lord in another consciousness. It can be in the mode of ignorance. It can be in the mode of passion. It can be in the mode of goodness. We should try to render it in the best possible Krishna consciousness we should get together. What else? We should associate with the devotees favorably. Favorably associate with the devotees. That is also part of his sadhana. Then, Prabhupada says, my followers should read my books 1 or 2 hours a day. That's what Prabhupada says. These are our sadhana. When we perform these things to the best of our ability, we read regularly, we associate with the devotees favorably, we execute the service which our temple authorities give us to the best of our ability. There may be discussion about how that service is executed, but when the discussion is finished and everything is agreed, then you perform it to the best of your ability, and your sadhana should be very strong, very strong. That means, I didn't come to Mangalarti this morning, but I have an excuse. Although Prabhupada did say there's an excuse for everything, but who wants to hear it? But I did have an excuse today. So that means the morning program. Because the morning program is where you get your strength. And if you don't do it, how do you feel? Come on, be honest with me. If you do it, you feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And if you miss any elements of it when you're a temple devotee, how do you feel? Something missing. Something missing. I'm not quite at my best today. Something missing. That's how we should feel. I mean, don't mind me. You know, it's my duty to preach these things to you. That's a lot, isn't it? To do all that stuff, isn't that a lot?
But that's why we live in a temple.
Yeah, but it's a lot, isn't it? It's hard work, doing all that stuff. No? Chanting your rounds in good consciousness. No? Following the morning program, associating favour with the devotees, reading for 1 or 2 hours a day, doing all your temple service. It's a lot, no? But that's only half. That is only half of our activity. What's the other half? Yeah. If you do this half of your activity very nicely, to the best of your ability, you'll want to preach. You'll want to, actually. It'll happen automatically. And then when you preach, because it said that books are the basis, preaching is the essence, utility is the principle, and purity is the force. If you have some purity when you interact with another soul, because bhakti is transferred in that way. But bhakti is causeless, actually. It is the mercy of the Madhyama Adhikari. When the Madhyama Adhikari is feeling merciful, and there is some piety in the heart of the person you're dealing with, then bhakti is transferred into the heart of that person. But it's based on your purity. If you don't have purity, you can't preach. You can try, but nothing much will happen. It requires purity. And what else does it require? We've got a few minutes, we can discuss this. If you're a preacher, we must have purity, that's true. But when we deal with different members of the general populace, what is the interaction? How should we deal?
You must be able to convince them.
Yeah, but what is that based on?
Caring, loving, devotion.
Yeah, you must actually genuinely care about that person in real life. You must genuinely care. Because if you don't, they'll kind of detect it. And it usually starts with offering friendship to that person. Because, they're not interested in your philosophy, frankly. Most people are not interested in philosophy. What are they interested in? Is there anyone out there who cares about me? Is there anyone out there? It's like, I had this experience recently with my godbrother, Jyoti Maipuru. He had some health issues. I think everyone knows that. He had some ongoing health issues. Actually, he was sandboarding, and he damaged his shoulder quite badly, actually. So when I heard about that, I rang him up and I said, Jyoti Maipuru, what happened to you? And I expressed to him that I really cared about him and he was to take good care of himself now. And you know what he told me? He told me, it's so nice that there's someone out there who cares about me. So this is the great gift that we can offer to anyone and everyone, actually, because that's one of the symptoms of a devotee. He's very friendly and has genuine care and concern for others. So this is how it starts. So even the Goswamis of Vrindavan would do this. They would travel around in Vrindavan because they would travel. They would come to a village and they would, first of all, they would express their concern. They would interact with the villagers. They would ask after them, their families, their occupation. They would establish a very loving and caring relationship. And then afterwards they would preach philosophy. That is the secret, actually. That if we are genuinely caring and concerned for everybody, then it will give you a platform on which to preach. And if you have some purity, then it'll go very quick. It'll go very quick. Okay, another thing you must do. I'll give you a clue. If you do not know where this person is at, how will you know what to tell them? You won't know. It's not one size fits all. Hey, you have to chant 16 rounds and follow Harali's principles. One size does not fit all. We're individuals. People at different places in their philosophical and spiritual development. And we have to understand something about that before we can try and raise them up to the next level. So therefore, what do you have to do? You have to ask questions. You have to find out a little bit about where they're at. And then you have to figure how you can raise them. Because as well, if you give a person too big a jump in their spiritual development, what will happen? It won't take, actually. And it may generate a bad taste. So we have to be expert at figuring out what is the next baby step for this person. What is the next baby step? What can I encourage them to do where they'll actually take a step forward? And that's not easy, actually. That's why preaching is an art. It's different for every individual. So since Prabhupada is pointing that out, that this is our real business, we have to understand the mechanics of preaching. How does it work? What is it that we are able to do? And it may be something like, it may be very, very simple, help the person to understand there actually is a God. It may be on that level. It may be on the level of how to take this Christian person and encourage them to look deeper into their own philosophy. Because from your questioning, you've figured out they're not ready for Krishna consciousness yet. But you could make an effort to make them, rather than just dismiss them. You could spend a minute or two just helping them to take a few steps forward in their Christianity. Or in their, Prabhupada wanted us to do that, wanted us to have a good understanding of the philosophy we find in other religious systems, so that we can preach Vaishnavism through Christianity, or through Islam, or through Judaism. Because our business is to try and touch the heart of every person we meet. Krishna actually says that later on in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Every person you meet, I want you to tell them about Krishna. Of course, the way that translates for a particular person will vary. But the idea is clear. Mahaprabhu is like, come on, just tell everyone. So is anyone left out of everyone? No. So Prabhupada, he wants us to preach to everyone, actually. And we have to learn to evolve that mentality. Wherever we move in life, we should keep our radar up. Because this will help your personal Krishna consciousness as well. If you're always thinking, who is there in my circle who's ready to hear something, who I could help takes the next step forward, it's very good for your consciousness, to think like that. Anyway, these are some of my realizations. We've got a few minutes left. Let's hear yours.
It's not a realization, it's a question.
No, whichever.
Okay. How do we not become puffed up in our preaching? I want to finish first. So the one aspect was that the devotees are friendly, right? But then also in that verse, the peace formula, it says that Krishna is everyone's friend. So in terms of friendship, like how do we not become puffed up that like, yes, I'm going to be this person's friend and I'm going to show them the way? And then another aspect of my question, how do we not become puffed up with like, I know exactly what you need to do in order for you to advance, and then,
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about humility. One way of looking at humility is to consider how great Krishna is. And then when we understand that, what will we understand about ourselves? There's even that prayer, please pick me up and place me as one of thee. So is it an exaggeration? No, it's not an exaggeration. Another way, this is Emerson, I think, says this, one of the American transcendentalists. He says, in every man in some way, every man I meet is in some way my better, and in that I can learn from him. I think that's Waldorf Emerson said that. If we consider that humility can also be understood as appreciating the greatness of others. And everyone has good qualities. Actually, humility as well is a constant meditation. We have to remind ourselves how great Krishna is and how small we are. And also when we're dealing with a person, this question you asked about, how do you think, well, I know how to talk to you. We should come with a very open heart and a humble attitude that I don't really know how to talk to you, but I'll see if I can find out by questioning. So humility is a very tenuous thing, because we have a tendency, our false ego is such a problem that we have a tendency to get puffed up over everything. So it's a constant meditation that this person is in some way is probably my better, and in that I could learn something from this person. Even Yadu Maharaj Dattatreya was telling Yadu Maharaj, I can learn from a tree or the sun or the moon or a prostitute called Pingala. So it's a constant meditation for us to understand that we're not much actually. We call it, Prabhupada wanted us to call each other Prabhu and Mataji to inculcate that mentality. So it's a constant meditation. And you can even pray to Krishna to help me remain humble. And you can even pray like that. No? And Krishna will arrange you get smashed, on different occasions. That when you're puffed up on your ego's in bloom, sometimes Krishna will arrange something. So for me, the answer to this question is it's a constant meditation to understand who we actually are. How does that sound? Yes?
Also, I think of the verse that says that Krishna gives the ability, and
Yeah.
so what we do is
Yes.
Krishna is
This is very
giving
nice.
one that ability.
That's very nice. But whatever ability we have is given by Krishna. Whatever we know, whatever we forget, and whatever we remember, Krishna is giving that. Let's go to Prabhu first and I'll come to you. Yeah.
Prabhu, what exactly is the Upasana Kanda?
What is?
Upasana Kanda.
Upasana? Oh, I didn't get what you said.
What exactly is the Upasana Kanda?
Upasana Kanda means devotional service. Means devotion. Because it's built on top of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. And then comes Upasana. So it's the devotional part of the Veda, which obviously compared with other things is very small actually. It's the conclusion. Is that all right?
The purport you read,
It's from Madhya Lila 167, I think. 169 or 167. Yeah, 167. 167. It's the verse that Rupa Goswami quotes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Very nice purport. If you want to encourage yourself to be a preacher, read this purport. Yeah.
This string of verses are tied in with nectar devotion.
Yes.
And bhakti being transcendental to karma and jnana as well.
Yeah. 2 pots of poison. That's what Narottam Das Thakur says. They're 2 pots of poison because they'll deviate you. We have to meditate on those 4 things, No other desire except to serve Krishna. At least if we meditate on it, it will become an aspiration. If we think about it regularly, it will become an aspiration. No other desire except to serve Krishna. No touch of karma or jnana or yoga or anything else. Executed constantly and favorably, as Krishna desires. It's like a constant meditation to check. What is my devotional service like? Is it mixed with karma? Is it mixed with a desire to enjoy something? Is it mixed with a desire for name and fame? Is it mixed with a desire for the ability to influence others? One of the first mystic cities that comes to a devotee. They don't want to take a book, but somehow or other you get them to do it. That's a mystic city actually. So it's a constant, this is the thing, to be constantly thinking about what does it mean to be a devotee. Anyway, this is some of my thinking. I don't know if it's helpful. Yeah.
I just want to share that I find safest to be purifying for me personally.
Don't understand, sorry?
Safest.
Yes.
Yeah, to be purifying.
Yeah, because
it's very difficult difficult to live in a temple, I won't lie.
Yeah, sure.
I've lived in
Actually, the
few
temple,
of them, and
the temple is
the
like a,
only thing that can keep you going is if you have service.
yeah.
Like if you're looking forward to be doing
Actually, you have
something.
to look for
Yeah.
service. Because
And-
brahmacharini or brahmachari life means look for service.
Yeah.
It means
And also
constantly
it-
think, what can I do? What can I
You
do?
learn better about yourself and the devotees and Krishna when you serve, because you know we are so imperfect and so impure that there's just so much about us. Personally speaking for myself, like I wouldn't even know where to start to do anything about anything. But you know, as I keep trying to do some services, other qualities are developing. Like I didn't know how to cook for devotees at some point. I wouldn't even dream of doing it, but I'm
Now.
getting to enjoy doing it.
Yeah,
And the cooking also is not so bad, to be honest,
sure.
because the interest is developing. But it wouldn't have happened if I always feared to do it.
Yeah.
But because I like to serve, when they say your service will be to cook, it scares me, but because I want to try and please whoever is thinking I can cook by giving it to me, then I do it, and then it just gets better and better and better. So
It's a very nice attitude.
every service you get is the same. I was
Yeah.
asked to decorate the altar for Ram Naomi. I
But
was
that is
very
one.
scared.
That's
I was
what.
very scared, but I said the reason they're asking me is because maybe they think I can decorate, and
This is
when
one
I tell them
advantage.
what I want to do, nobody wanted to help.
Shame. This is one advantage of living in a small temple.
Yeah,
That there's always so much service to do.
yeah,
Yeah. When you live in a bigger temple, sometimes you just get one service. You just have to do that for like 6 months or something. But the great advantage of living in a small temple is you get so many different services you can do. It's a very nice attitude you have. Okay, we should stop unless there's anything else. Because it's breakfast time. Who's cooking?
Ganesha Prabhu
Go on. He cooked nice, no?
cooked very nice.
Yeah. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Shri Shri Nittai Mai Prachandra ki jai. Samabhaita Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Gaura Premananda.
It's been shown in the Krishna devotee.
You can keep it, Prabhu, and roll the the roses for us. There's a marigold that I want to give to the